Hello and welcome back to episode 3 of Reviews. Today I've got another two artists who've graciously shared their work with us. So we're going to be starting off with Alice Baglietto. She's an artist that I've met through LinkedIn, as well as Nathan Reynolds, another artist who got in touch through LinkedIn, I believe through watching the previous podcast. So let's get ahead and we'll start with Alice's work. So let's get started today with Alice's showreel here. So I'm just going to go ahead and play this. So I've not fully watched this through yet. I don't know what the breakdown is, but immediately I'm pretty sure this is just a plate photography and the carousel has been comped in. Let's just go ahead and play through and see if that's true or not. Nope. So let me just see here. Okay, so it looks like there's a breakdown further ahead, so we'll watch this next clip and then go to the breakdown. It would be much better to put the breakdown with the clip it belongs to rather than jumping to a second one. It stops with confusion, so that might be something to do in the future. There's something very bizarre happening on this wall, but we'll check it out on the breakdown later on. Okay, this will be the useful bit. So from my point of view as a modeler, that's my main job. So there looks to be, there's a few things here that would need to be repaired. First of all, the densities are completely different. So you see how many lines you have going across here versus up here. There should be a loop in between each of these. It's not hard to add that in without destroying the curvature. I would imagine that this model's, I don't know if this model would be smoothed well or not. It's difficult to tell, but there's certainly, it's very low density. It looks much more like a game res model to me. You shouldn't have to rely on subdivisions to make your shape. It should be about 90% of the way there before you smooth it. The smoothing should just be that final little touch that adds the realism, whereas this is very, very faceted, so it's nowhere near what it would want to be. There should be control loops in here and here, lots in here, maybe 3, maybe 5 in there. There should be loops here. Overall, not a bad looking model. It just needs more detail put into it. Horses don't look too bad here. If they were going to be animated, there would need to be a lot of work put into this. You've got a really high density in here, which then loops out into this kind of low density area, so obviously that wouldn't deform. I would get the feeling perhaps from looking at the wireframe these were modelled as standard and then deformed into this position, because the wireframe just, there's something odd about the way it flows. It looks very stretched here. For a static object, not so much of a problem, but it would be worth going through and giving this a second topology pass just to tidy things up. And here there's this weirdness of density as well. I imagine this is just loops to try and hold the shape, but again you've got these tight edges, loose edges, tight edges, loose edges. You want to have equal density in here as well, especially. You'll get distortion across the textures there. And the muzzle, it's very hard to tell, but it looks a lot more high density, but obviously we need to see a closer up view to be able to properly tell that. Here you've got this cross coming down in the edge here. I generally try and always avoid having, you'll have this 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of 5-point poly in here. I always avoid having those on the edges because those give you the worst distortion. It would be worth just running perhaps a bevel on this whole thing just to bring that in one loop. That would certainly help improve that model there. Okay, you can see here, I think this model has been smoothed out quite a lot. You can see the faceting's gone, which is quite nice. The flags, yeah, they look cool. Let's go through here and see these passes. So immediately from the reflection pass, I don't see the tree. I don't see it in any of the mirrors. I can't see it down here, I don't think. And I'm not seeing the tablecloth, so maybe there's some layers later on which comp that in, I'm not sure. Okay, let's leave that on that one there. So what made me notice that from when we first opened it up is looking like it was a CG element. First of all, the reflection. So I can see there's this, I believe this is a reflection. This might be an image, but even in here, I'm not seeing the tartan of the case. I'm not seeing the lid. I believe this mirror would be pointed directly over here somewhere, so I should be able to see some of the tablecloth, this tree, this bag, and with these being quite reflective, you'd get a colour cast. So there should be this like red casting onto here. You'd have the kind of greeny gold casting down from this side, and none of the Christmas lights are available here. I can see they're glowing, so I know it's kind of far away, but there would be a slight element in there. And obviously this shadow doesn't match the table. You can see this dark ring underneath. It makes it look like perhaps it's sitting on a table coaster or something like that. Maybe that's the design intended, but the shadow is perfectly round, whereas there are wrinkles in the tablecloth here, which the shadow would have to interact with, which I don't see. The lighting looks fairly nice. You can see, so your source lights up here somewhere coming down. So we are matching up the shadow direction fairly well. The only other thing I would say is versus everything else in the scene around about it, it does look very saturated, so it might be worth bringing that down a bit. And if you had this, you could do a quick simple model, just a plane and a plane coming down there, put a bevel on it, and you could project this texture on there, and that would reflect some of the red back up onto the model. You would get that colour cast, whereas here it does look like it's been CG'd in. It does look nice for a first pass, really good, but there's just a few things. Yeah, you can see it's kind of hard to do this on the video here, but if you watch this mirror, it should be reflecting the room, and then as it comes round, it'll slowly start to pick up this Christmas tree with the light, then it'll pick up this bag, whereas just now it's just black. And then as it comes round, there's no tree, it's just picking up like a horizon line almost. So that'd be certainly something, maybe an HDRI, an HDR, would be a really nice thing to add into the scene. It wouldn't be too hard to make either. I get nervous looking at these streets. I get to travel on them every day, so okay, nice points. This is the same as that previous model. There is density issues, so we've got fairly at the back. I'd say this level is fairly nice, but then as you're stretching out, there should be a line in between. Let me bring up my little tool here. There should be in here a loop. You see this distance to the edge? It should be the same. It's much bigger here, so you're going to get stretching and distortion. This will be the same all the way across. Around here is not too bad. These lines don't match up, which means you're going to have a different curvature on this edge. This needs to be 1, 2, 3, something like that. I know it's a flat surface, but you should keep the same density across your entire model. Front section looks okay, the wheels look nice. This needs much more density. The stairs just look like just plain rectangles that have had a bevel on them, so they need quite a lot of love. Same in here. This is just flat topology. Overall though, nice, fairly nice flow. You can see the edges coming around, they're coming down the model. Overall not too bad. It just needs a bit more density and just a bit more love. Even in the bits that you can't see, you should still give the same level of effort. If you're working on a feature film, this might be the shot that you're given, but then it could be in 2 weeks time suddenly there's a shot when the camera goes through the inside of the model. Your model needs to be ready for all possibilities, apart from perhaps if you were going to this stage when it was going to be like a full destruction, then you would get to learn about it beforehand, because you'd have to build certain aspects into it. It's just the same in the back there, just the density. With this you're going to get, because you've got this, let me draw another one here. This is going to give you a really ugly curve. You can see you've got close, and it's out spreading out, and it's spreading out, and it's spreading out, spreading out, and then this is going to slowly stretch all the way across this direction, whereas you should have this nice equal density all the way along. And having this is a huge gap between these two, so that's going to pull. So you put a texture in this is going to smooth and just pull everything that direction, and then it'll do the same on this side, and then in the middle you'll have almost a pitch, like a pinching point, as everything else will be pulled and stretched around. So you don't want that. That's going to give you a bad effect. That line should be, well, perhaps it's specific in the model, but I don't know what's going on here. To me, this looks like these lines should be straight, at least parallel with the lines beside them. There should be more topology in there. You can see here this line, the width that is here versus the width that is here. There's quite a difference. The same down here, it's coming down at an angle, it pulls out. And again, with the interiors, they look like they've been ignored a bit. So they should always take equal care of all the parts of your model. The same notes. There's something odd sticking up here. I can see there's an intersection. This plane, you can see it's jumping through here, is intersecting with the front of the model. I'm not sure what that's meant to be, but if I can see intersection like this, it's going to show up really clearly in the model. I'd imagine it's almost been cheated in slightly, because from the composition you only see the model from the back, which if you're going to be doing like an advertisement or a personal project, maybe you can get away with that. But if you're going to model in a proper studio, that's not going to work. And as well, you've got this curve that should come smooth down over. Let's just draw another quick one here. This curve should come down and smoothly over and match the curvature of the bus all the way along, whereas this is kind of curving and comes to the front. It's very, very odd. Should be, let me just go back on that. You would want this to come down and then over the front and down, and then in here you'd have your nice match up, and this curvature would maintain all the way along, and all the way along this curvature would maintain, not this weird kind of pinching edge here. We'll maybe do a quick example of what I mean exactly about that afterwards. I'll open up Modo and show you what I mean there. So that notes that I had earlier on this edge down here, I can see that it's because this poster's got this slight edge to it, but even still this should be a straight line all the way down, and then it'll go into a curve, because I can see there's like a slight odd faceting. It looks like it doesn't fit in there, and there's quite a lot of compression here. If you look at the girl here, it looks like perhaps this half's okay, but this half is really compressing in rather than being on a curve. Yeah, if we compare it to the face down here, to this face, there's certainly, it's squashed in quite a lot. So overall, it's a really nice composition. This stands out to me. I can't stop seeing it now, unfortunately. I don't see, you've got this plate here, but there are no reflections of people moving. Let me just double check that before I shoot myself in the foot. Yep. There's no reflections of anybody moving here. Even if this was a quick composition, you could cheat it and just camera project it onto the model. It really makes it stand out. I can see here, I'm seeing the reflection of a road sign. This is the pavement. There should be no road sign reflection here. And again, there's something just slightly off about the saturation. I'm not sure what it is. I'm thinking from looking at this as it moves, this has just been straight camera projected on. Personally, I would maybe take this one. It looks like you've got a much nicer angle on it, paint this onto the UV map and then put it on, it'll get rid of that distortion. That would be my guess of what's happened. Otherwise, yeah, it's nice to have it tracked in. It looks well done. Or what's something odd there? What was that? I can see it looks like a car on top of a car and the reflection through the back there. And this to me suggests that this van would be here somewhere. It's just simple reflections, but overall for a composition, very well done. And the only other thing is perhaps it looks like it is hard up against the curb here. Yeah, it looks like it's completely pressed against it, which almost gives you this feeling of a bad track, because it almost looks like there's a little bit of movement happening in there. So if you could just shift it just a couple of inches, it would just sell so much better. That's brick here. So immediately when I opened this up earlier, I saw on this wall, I don't know what's happened, it looked like a weird wobbly warpy thing. Yeah, you see it here in the model. Now I could understand if these bricks were breaking apart, but this looks like a wave going across, so it's very, very odd. It's quite nice, some of these bricks chunking together. It would certainly be worth, I can see you've got these little pieces that are coming off, but I don't see in any of the bricks these little pieces. I see this weird warp texture. That to me looks like I've got a video that's loaded in the wrong quality. See, in here you get this weird flexy bending thing. I can understand it's an easy way to make a quick explosion, but it just looks incredibly odd. The only way I could see this working is if you had like a large fire in the scene, and it would give you that kind of heat mirage effect. There doesn't seem to be a real central point to this explosion either. It's like a uniform rectangle just exploding out. It makes no sense why the wall over here is exploding if this is the epicenter. If it was an explosion, surely it would, I'd imagine it would start at the windows, because it would be the weak point, and then it would radiate out. Let me do a quick painting here. Yeah, so it looks like this is the epicenter, is a uniform rectangle. Whereas I'd imagine with the wall here, you'd have, this would be your point of explosion. These are not very straight lines, I know, but this tool doesn't have a shift key, unfortunately, that I know of. These are the windows, and then it would radiate outwards in a kind of uniform direction. Whereas this wall's not been damaged, nothing really is happening here. I don't know what's going here because it's occluded by smoke. It's kind of happening over here, which is nice, but to me it would explode outwards. These areas wouldn't be affected as much. This would really pop because the two explosion points would be meeting, and these bricks would explode out. They'd come flying out, whereas now it looks like they're just kind of gently dropping down. The ladder is connected to the wall. This, I don't understand why this doesn't move, or just at least distort or bend. And there's just, I see these, you get these wee tiny, these are really nice, these wee chips of wood, kind of concrete from the brick, but none of the bricks look like they're damaged. They all look like they have that warping effect on them, so they change over time, which is very odd. If you watch one, yeah, where's that? I see it, it looks like that odd effect isn't in the simulation, so that would be really easy to fix. We just need to go through and take out whatever that layer was. Take this whole wall, looks like it's curving up, this brick's distorting, and then the next frame this will curve back down. Bricks don't do that, and if this was happening, this would explode out and shatter into pieces. Really heavy texture stretching on the end here, some with no texture at all. So it might be worth, if this was the case, just not putting textures on them at all if it wasn't a UV exercise. But overall, fairly nice. The smoke looks decent. It's just the general physics of it don't really fit. It looks like a building slowly pouring out of itself, not exploding, and I really don't understand that warp texture that's been put on top. And it really stands out. Unfortunately, it takes away from the rest of the scene, so it'd be worth just going in, taking that pass out, and putting it back up again. That would certainly massively improve things. But overall, really nice portfolio, a good combination of skills, certainly a good starting point to get into a junior role or to get into a starting studio there. Some really good potential, so yeah, great to see. So let's move on to the next artist now. And next up today we have Nathan Reynolds' portfolio here. I'm going to be looking through his ArtStation. So I saw he had this Look Dev video on it, so we're going to go through and have a quick play of this. I probably won't do a breakdown during the reel, we'll just have a quick watch, and then I'll open up the actual, he's got stills on his ArtStation which we'll look at afterwards, will be much easier. Although immediately in this, it might not work later on with that turning light. The reflection is completely uniform. I think there's maybe a slight variation, maybe a noise map's been added in, but it's just the same. It looks like dirt's been added. The dirt affects the reflection. It shouldn't have this uniform look to it, and it almost looks plastic. Yeah, you can see it there especially. Just smooth. There's no dirt breakup. I can see a dirt color map. It's very slightly in here. I think that's from where he's put the exhausts in. But even still, it looks like that's just been painted out completely. It wouldn't be completely occluded. There'd be a variation, a breakup in there. And I almost can see something in here. That's what I'm talking about. It's very subtle. There it is. So yeah, sorry, I know I said I wouldn't look at this, I'd look at the stills, but actually there's some quite useful stuff in here, so we might as well go through it. That to me looks like galvanized metal, just a procedural. The scale is way too big for this plane. This should be much smaller. If you're going to put in dirt maps, I'd scale this down 2 or 3 times and then add in custom dirt maps. There should be dirt up the edges. I think I saw it next, so we'll check that in a second, but this needs to be scaled up. Way too uniform. It looks like somebody's just taken a Photoshop paintbrush and gone across it with like an air spray kind of brush, and the wheels are penetrating through the ground. There was that map there. There is a slight break up in the edge here, but the front looks really nice. It looks like some effort's been put in here, but these look like just afterthoughts. They should come all the way around. They should come all the way from here, all the way up the body, along. It should maybe even, I'd imagine, on the tip it would be even more intense because the wind shear is coming across and blowing up across the tail. Especially in the wings, at the tips, the airflow is much faster. It should be much stronger. And this looks like, again, it's just a brush has just been pulled across the bottom. It could be done with a generator, or at least just a bit of breakup in the brush should be much nicer. And I've got no idea what's going on here. These almost look like artifacts. They don't look like they actually belong there. Okay, this is what I mean about that specular pass. We've just seen where those noise maps are. We've seen where the dirt and the directional kind of breakup's coming. I don't see any of it here. I don't see any of it here. Where there's dirt, things change. Specularity, need to add that in. Overall looks quite nice, but it does look much more like a toy because of that. There's no breakup, but for a student level project, yeah, this looks fantastic. I certainly wasn't making things like this when I was a student, so the critiques I'm making are just helping it get to that next level. Yeah, no, it looks great. Although this slightly stands out, it looks just a bit, I don't know what it is about it, it just looks odd. Maybe dirty upper, yeah, but it looks too clean. I think that's what it is. immediate impressions when I first look at this, it looks quite nice, although I think these are meant to be leather, but with the way the folds have been made, let's have a look. I think it's leather. It looks like just hammered metal though. I don't know if it's meant to be, it's kind of hard to tell. If it is meant to be leather, it's way too stiff. It looks like, yeah, hammered metal or bronze or something like that, rather than being an actual material. It looks super procedural. It doesn't, there's any sculpting detail. There should be more folds in the elbows. There'd be more relief up here, which will give you that sense of pressure coming round. It'd be slightly bunched up here. Again, coming in here. This looks like it's floating. I imagine at the top it's probably matching, but underneath here, if this is fabric, it's draping down. This looks like it's just completely floating above, just waiting for a simulation. UV texture look dev. Okay, so it's not really the model I'm meant to be looking at here. Chainmail looks quite nice. It's got that that kind of automatic handy thing built in. There's so much variation in the model that it can get away with a lot of mistakes in the texture. But on here, this to me looks like a satin plastic. This doesn't look like fabric. Oh, sorry. And I'm not sure. Again, it looks to me as uniform specular. I'm not seeing. I think in here there's like some kind of texture to give the indication of what kind of material it is. I don't see any bump. I don't see any specular. There's no light breakup. It's just a smooth surface. It looks like satin plastic. The mud looks like it's just part of it. I don't see any. There should be even just a normal map or a bump map just to pull this off the surface. It has a texture. There should be noise in it. There should be absorbing the light. It shouldn't be blending perfectly into here. Yeah, that kind of really stands out. And the belt doesn't look too bad. I can see what looks like a bit of breakup in here, but it is kind of killed by being sat on top of such a uniform structure. The stitches as well, I don't see any height. Things like this are really easy to fix. You've already got your diffuse map, so just put it into black and white and play with the curves. You can really quickly get an approximation out. It's not going to be perfect, but if you're just quickly putting together this as a showreel, that would help so much. Because to me, rather than this looking like, I think it's, from what I was seeing at the start, it's meant to have that kind of knight in a castle type look, something King Arthur, that type of thing. To me it looks like a plastic figurine, like a small toy, because there's the indication of detail, but it's not there. There's something just, where did it go? It looks like there was, or is, a kind of attempt at a fabric in here, but I only see it on the white. And it should be uniform across the entire thing. It's just got heavy chainmail sitting on it. This fabric should have indentation. There should be a fold, some pressure. And here as well, is this uniform. It comes in and it comes back out. It should bulge. It should come down and ruffle and curve back in and then curve out. There should be pressure. There's a lot that could be done to additionally sell this, but I think just putting in a normal map on this would really help. Using this dirt mask, just break it up some more. So yeah, you can see almost there's some very slight angles. I can see there is more reflection on this. It catches the light, but it's so subtle, so very subtle that it's you can't read it from all angles. Especially up here, I'm starting to see this texture. It's missing. It needs to be boosted. Oh, there it was. Sorry, double click with this back on here. It's odd this is not showing up. I'm not sure how this has been applied, but it does look like a nice kind of dirt map, but it really doesn't show through on the model itself. And it looks super procedural all up in here. A little bit of hand painting just to break it up would go a long way. Yep, there it is especially. See, they've got this light coming on from the side. It's just smooth, there's no breakup. I don't see the mud. I don't see any fabric indentation. Same on that side. And the boots, it kind of got away with that because it's in shadow, but not good practice to hide things. Now this is, to me, is looking like some kind of Blade Runner type aesthetic, but it's so dark and so foggy. I have got no idea what's going on here. I imagine in this room is kind of meant to be the focal point of the scene, but I can barely even make that out. Let's see if there's anything further on. Oh, okay, so that was it. Let's go back. So layout wise, I'm seeing so much repetition. Everything's the same height, same layout. I mean, it looks like this one's perhaps been pushed out a little further than these ones, but they're all same level. It would be immensely better. It just jumble these around a bit. Maybe this building's slightly taller. Maybe this doesn't need to have the same count of windows. This just looks replicated all the way across. It is quite nice here having the building with this central point. It's a nice focal area for what is quite a difficult scene to read. This thing here is slightly distracting, but I think if I was going to do it myself, I'd probably put lights in some of these building windows and some of these ones. You can have them on low. You don't need to have them anywhere near as bright as this, just to make this look like something, is because at the moment it does just look like a flat replicated thing pulled all the way across. And it is slightly odd. It looks, there's quite a strong light in the background here. I can understand maybe having the bottom of the street dark, but it's not really even catching along the tops here. We would maybe have that kind of that angle coming across of this light. That would really help selling. Then even if you had, especially if you had this angle coming down and down, it's giving directionality. It's letting you know that up here, this is where you're focusing. This stuff doesn't have to be amazing, but it needs just a little bit of variation. Maybe a couple of lights here and there. Get rid of a few of these, move these around. Maybe even open a window, something simple, or just put, maybe in this one, put a pot or a box or something just to indicate it's been lived in, because it looks like quite a kind of a rugged city, but it doesn't look like it's been used, which is normally doesn't go along with the rugged aesthetic. Yeah, overall, again, a really nice reel. Some simple things that could be fixed quite easily. Looks like all the base work is there. It's just the final execution that needs to be worked on. Simple things like just making sure your specular maps work from all angles. Try them in different lighting conditions, because when we build our model, we build it in kind of like a studio set to give the overall feel, but sometimes in particular scenes we will then go back in and adjust it because it doesn't match. So this is something to expect, and you really need to be able to sell the feeling of material. If you're going to be doing look, dev and texture, and I look at your model, and I'm just a modeler, so when I look at textures I don't have 100% understanding, but I can look at a piece of material and like the night there, and you can see this is plastic, this is not cloth. If I'm seeing that and I'm not a texture artist, if you're going to be working with texture artists, it's going to be you're going to notice a lot more than me. So I'd really go in there and just focus, perhaps rather than doing large projects like that, just start with your simple kind of shader balls, just work up a material in there, then put it onto your model once you've got that to a point, because I know it can be distracting if you're working on a model itself. The model can distract you from the thing you're working on, whereas if you develop it in isolation, if you can make it look really good there, theoretically it should look really good when you put that onto the actual model. But yeah, really good starting point. Again, another great reel to get into the junior side of things. The only one I would say is it would be really, really nice. You've got all these nice passes. There's no, I'm saying responsible for everything. I don't see a wireframe, so immediately this won't even be considered for modeling. I believe it was the same Further on here, I don't believe this guy got a wireframe either. Yeah, no wireframe, so you'll never be able to get a modelling type job with this showreel, because I've got no idea how you work. But yeah, overall, simple things. Just go in there, make sure your maps work properly. You've already created all this dirt texture, so just reuse them. Use that to put this in a multiply layer just to bring things out a bit more. Use your dirt ones, copy them, turn them black and white, use them as a displacement or a normal map or a bump map, just to get me feeling that mud is separate from the fabric. I know some of it soaks in, but there's a layer on top of the fabric and I should be able to read that. So just, yeah, essentially that and the wireframes. With that final piece with the buildings, I would completely remove that. It's I've got no idea what it is. It doesn't tell me a story. I don't see any breakdowns of it. I don't see any wireframe, anything like that. It's just kind of a random piece at the end. So I would completely remove that and just kind of improve on that. Was it a Spitfire, I think it was. Improve on that and improve on the night. Get rid of the buildings, unless you're going to go in there and do a lot of work, but there's a lot more work needed in that than the other two. So if you're looking to quickly get your portfolio improved, I'd focus on those two. That would certainly help a lot. So thank you very much for watching today. I hope the advice that I've given in this is useful, especially to the artists who let me use their work. As always, I very much appreciate it. I know it can be scary having your work critiqued, but it is a massive point of the job. You're going to have it done twice a day, so it's good to get it done now. And as well as having your own work critiqued, you're helping other people who are going to watch this video. They'll be able to identify perhaps the same errors and improve. So yeah, it's a general thank you from me to you and the rest of the community for letting this all happen. Like, dislike the video as you please. It gives me feedback so I know if I need to improve something. If you'd like your work to be included, feel free to message me here or leave a comment or get me a LinkedIn. And yeah, I really look forward to the next episode to see whose work that we get to review. So I'll see you in the next one.